Welcome back to Level 1 Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Bolton. And in this episode, I welcome back astrologer Laura Black to explore the real power of astrology beyond the pop culture horoscopes and algorithmic readings. We talk about the differences between Western and Eastern astrology and why soul-centered astrology can't be replaced by AI or other apps. I would like to welcome back my good friend and my favorite astrologist, Laura Black from Black Light Astrology, to talk about all things astrology. There seems to be an uptick in astrology these days that I see, and there's a lot of different things going on in the world. What you see like in TikTok versus a real astrology reading, Vedic versus tropical versus sidereal, I think is how you say that. And so I kind of want to have the record set straight a little bit, Laura, today. So thank you for joining me again on the podcast to talk about these things and kind of, I don't know, clear the air.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Of course. Yeah. I think I think a good place for us to start is really talking about the differences between Vedic, tropical, and sidereal, because that then frames like where we go next, you know?
Sure, yeah.
So go ahead and kick us off on your perspective.
Yeah. Originally, astrology, as far as we know, there's a bit of mystery around the actual origins, and there's some mythology about the origins as well.
Mhm.
Is this just a history of humans recognizing patterns in nature, or was it gifted to us by whom and when?
Right.
There is some mystery, but the differences. So I am a tropical or Western astrologer, and you'll also hear about something called Vedic or sidereal, which are much the same.
Mhm.
They are often called Eastern. Eastern is the sidereal slash Vedic astrology
Mhm.
versus Western tropical. And really, the difference is based in perspective and a little bit in language.
Mhm.
Western astrology is very appropriate for the Western world. Vedic astrology or sidereal, which I had never heard pronounced in person until I don't know, several years ago, and I called it sidereal. If you look at it, it's side, and I pronounced it sidereal for years.
Yeah. Actually, I had to look it up and have Google tell me how to pronounce it because I was like, how do you say this? I'm pretty sure it's not sidereal, but yeah.
Yeah, no, heard. That's what I should have done. I was like a decade. It's like, no, it's sidereal, you guys. Yeah, that is a system that's kind of taken from the perspective of being in the constellations. It's the perspective of the stars, and it's super exact. Both systems are very, very accurate. But you will hear a lot of astrologers say that the main differences are perspective. Western astrology or tropical is based on our human perspective here on the earth. And that's whether you're going heliocentric, where the sun is the center of the whole system, or earth centric, which is the form that most Western astrologers will utilize. If you're in Western astrology realm and you're hearing that there's no such thing as retrogrades, there are no retrogrades in that system, it's heliocentric, because from the sun's perspective, none of the planets go backward. They're always going forward, you know? But from the Earth's perspective, which is where we are as humans, which is why I like it, it looks from time to time and feels like the energy of these planets are going backward as our planet passes them in orbit. Vedic astrology or Eastern astrology is very rooted in a rich Hindu or Jainist tradition. It's, as far as we know, more ancient or the original form, but it's very much taken from the perspective of being in the constellations. And you'll hear it referred to as more exact by Vedic astrologers often, which I don't entirely agree with, but Western astrology will be utilized for more psychological evaluation, and Vedic astrology or Eastern will be used for more exact prediction. There is famously a young Indian boy who accurately predicted the can I say the the thing we all went through in 2020?
Yeah. COVID? Yeah, you can say that.
Okay, good. I'm like, what can I say on
That's
here?
how we're.
Yeah, very accurately predicted that before it happened.
Mhm.
So, there's it's used as a tool for prediction. I've had clients who've come to me with their Vedic readings and that were given to them as a gift at birth. and they predicted everything from like their haircut as a teenager to, who and when they would marry and what the qualities of their spouse would be like. It's very, very exact. Now, it's not that Western astrology can't be used as a tool for prediction. It is. It's often extremely exact as well. It's a little more nuanced. I think it takes a lot more experience, a lot more intuition. But Vedic astrology will be utilized more for that tool of prediction and timing assessment.
I see. Interesting. I recently had my very first Vedic astrology reading, and I found it interesting. There was a few things were like, aha, but for the most part, my charts are basically the same no matter how I look at them for myself. So do you find that to be, do you know if that's like a common thing, or if it can be drastically different?
It can be drastically different. It's true. It's not always the same. It's actually a little more rare that your two systems will match up with each other. For example, by that, I'm assuming you mean that, you've got this huge Taurus stellium, a lot of planets in Taurus for those
Yep.
who don't speak the language, and some in Aries in your 12th house. And maybe that's true for those same signs and locations in your Vedic or sidereal charts.
Yep. Correct.
Mine are very different. I'm a Gemini and I have a Gemini stellium in my Western astrology, but I'm a Taurus in Vedic. And it has everything to do with the number of constellations we're including and the timing of them, because in Western, we're going from the Earth's perspective, and we're only using these 12 signs along the ecliptic plane. So if you hear anybody talking about there's a new 13th sign, it's not new. We've always known about it. We don't include it in Western.
That kind of has been there.
But what's that?
The 13's always been there. Yeah.
Yes, always been there. It's just not utilized for us. It always cracks me up when Neil deGrasse Tyson goes off on, Fucus, the 13th sign, and it's new, and I'm like, stay in your lane, bro.
Yeah.
That's not-
No, I agree with you. It's just been hidden. But that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and it's potent and real, but not utilized in Western. But by some, it can be, but it's not the standard set. And in Vedic astrology, it's a little more, it's vast. And really for me, I'm a yoga teacher.
Yep.
And after doing a few different teacher trainings, I've developed a huge amount of respect for the history and tradition of kind of everything in that world. Basically, just understanding that the language, Sanskrit, which the Vedic system is based in,
Yep.
is so ancient and so pithy.
Ah.
Each syllable is so packed with meaning, and it has been used and spoken and written so long across time in ways that we English speakers can't really understand. Our languages, especially modern English, is really in its nascent stages. It's just a bitty baby language compared to Sanskrit, which they say is a dead language, although it lives in certain places. And it lives in these systems. I remember my very first yoga teacher training where I learned, Virabhadrasana and Chaturanga Dandasana, and these words that it was important that we learned the name. But I didn't start to study Sanskrit, which, I mean, I've barely scratched the surface of like
So
dabbling in basic Sanskrit. Yeah, until my third teacher training. And then I started to realize like, oh, the meaning of each of these syllables is so packed and so potent. And, there's a really rich history and tradition that is honored in Vedic astrology. So I have a huge amount of respect for that. And as somebody who has not yet gone deep into that study, I feel hesitant to really speak to that system in great depth. But there are amazing Vedic astrologers.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's great. And
Great system.
yeah. And so I think you wanted to talk too and touch base on astrology and yoga or astrology as yoga. And since you already touched base on that, I think that's a good segue into what you mean by that exactly.
Totally, yes. I'm really passionate about this as a yogi and a yoga teacher. In the Western world, we teach this thing called yoga, but a lot of kind of Easterners will be like, that's not yoga. You know what you're doing in the West, this workout thing that you're doing. They're right on. It's totally true. Yoga, the word yoga in Sanskrit, again, let's go down to the root. It's from the root yuj, Y-U-J, which translates most closely in English to yoked, as in to distribute something evenly across multiple sources. So you think like yoking two oxen together with this harness, to bring together, to unify. Yoga means union. And yoga asana, which most closely translates to mean to take a comfortable seat what we're doing in these posture practices isn't really the whole of yoga. It's the first, arguably the second, depending on who you ask, of 8 steps toward yoga, the 8-limbed path. And we're trying to get to union, but it's first we have to prepare the body so that we can sit it down comfortably for a long enough period of time to meditate and center. Now, some of these further out steps along this yogic path toward yoga include the yama and niyama. And you'll hear these kind of referred loosely to in the Western world as like the do's and don'ts, like the 10 commandments of yoga, which always makes me cringe a little, like
What?
bad
Yeah.
connotations with it. But the sort of observances and adherences, the things that we do, there are 5 yama and 5 niyama, the things that we avoid. I like to think of them more as the ways that we treat ourselves and the ways that we treat others. These are things like, the ways that we treat ourselves. Always do your best. Try to find contentment. Be clean, be orderly, organized. Things like that. And one of those yama or yamas is svadhyaya, which translates to mean self-study.
Uh-huh.
So astrology is a map of the unique self for each of us or our nation or anything can have a chart. And it's a way of engaging with svadhyaya, self-study, one of these ways of how you treat yourself so that you can prepare for the niyama, how to treat others. Things like non-harming, non-stealing, non-violence, always speak the truth, satya, things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yoga.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you're thinking about preparing the body to sit and meditate through yoga, right, of stretching and preparing the body to sit in different positions for long periods of time, it's also like it's mapping out your body, kind of like you're mapping out the stars to move your body into position, into self enlightenment, basically, right? Good.
Totally. And my own yoga practice, my own asana practice, my
Mhm.
posture practice changed and evolved so much, or my relationship with it, or my expectation of it, which is huge under this eclipse that we're approaching this weekend.
Yeah.
Um, my expectations of my own practice evolved once I started to really understand my unique chart, because then I could see what I needed, who I am, how my body functions, and what my seasons and cycles are. And that way I stopped expecting certain things of myself that are just not right for me, not aligned with me and my path or at that time and that season.
Yeah.
And so then I could start to design my practices for me. And now this is how I teach classes. I teach what I call astro yoga. And I design all of my classes based on the astrology of the moment that I'm teaching.
Well, that's awesome. Which then leads us to the healing power of a chart, right? Where we can move through our shadow into the healing light based on what we see represented in our chart, which is basically our blueprint of our life in this incarnate, of how we move through to get from one point to another, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
This steps into shadow work. This is very Jungian psychology. So are we wanting to go there
Yeah,
next?
yeah, yeah. We're just rolling along through. I think so. Yeah.
I love the shadow stuff. All right. So if you speak the language of astrology, I have Pluto and Saturn on my ascendant. And so this is shadow work
Oh,
101.
yeah.
That's my responsibility. So astrology, yoga, astrology as a yoga for shadow work. Carl Jung was an astrologer, and
Yes.
he was famous for saying, psychology will forever remain a dinosaur science until it includes the art of astrology. My teacher, Deborah Silverman, I went through her whole applied astrology school. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. She is a psychotherapist I think she's been doing it for like 50 years, as long as she's been doing astrology. And as a psychotherapist, she couldn't do it the normal way. She has Uranus in her 10th house near her midheaven. She had to kind of bend the rules and go her own weird path. And famously, she did her thesis work by insisting that she go into different institutions to work with people who are struggling with their mental health and explore their charts. And she looked for the through line. And she did find a strong correlation. Every single person who was
Amazing.
struggling with their mental health had high conflict between the planets Mercury and Uranus,
Wow.
which I have in my chart too. So
Oh,
Mercury
no.
opposite Uranus. Yeah. So that was very like revealing when I learned that. I was like, oh, yep, there it is. Can't deny that. Yeah, the astrology as a tool for shadow work is a way of accessing and understanding the soul's journey, each unique soul's blueprint or soul thumbprint, and seeing. I mean, I think it's one of the main gifts of astrology is when applied with wisdom and a strong mentorship and guidance. Astrology is a way of looking into the self that really does not allow for the denial of any aspect
Yeah.
of the person, the human being. If you sit with it long enough, astrology is not a one and done. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I've had my chart read," and
My
fully
gosh,
well, like
no.
every
I think I've seen you now,
deeper.
like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I don't know, for like
I-
the last 3 years. So, yeah. A
right?
quick check-in, even though we
And I
probably
love
already
it.
went through it. I'm like, "No, I need to hear it again," you know? Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Mercury and Taurus, you and me, that repetition, baby.
We need to hear it over and over and over. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to engage with it under different seasons of our lives and different astrologers, Gemini that I am, I'm always going to encourage people, go to another perspective, find that book, find that author, find that teacher,
Yeah.
go to that astrologer and see how they say it. And they might speak your language a little differently.
Yep.
And then you get there's it's very pithy. You get more depth. And the beauty of it is you can see both the light qualities,
Yeah.
kind of the positive aspects of the placements and arrangements in your chart, and there's always a shadow side.
Uh-huh.
And if you're wise in your utilization of this tool, it shows you every nook and cranny, every possible angle
Yeah.
of your human self.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been my chart daily for decades and I never stop learning. I never, you go through peaks and valleys, little plateaus and things of like, wow, all this new information is breaking open, but there's never a point at which I'm like, well, I know all about my Mars. I'm done,
Oh, yeah.
never.
No. Yeah. No.
Right. And so you get all the negative qualities of it and where we trip ourselves up and where we get stuck and where we're, harming ourselves or others. So it's a really beautiful tool for what we call shadow work or integration of all the parts that we might deny or reject or not be so fond of in ourselves.
I think it's good too because we can step into a part of ourselves of accepting, right? Accepting, like, oh, this is just part of what I have to move through. And I'm not, I did this to myself, and this is just part of my map through this life, right? Like, no, not something
Mm,
horrible is happening to me. It's supposed to happen to me. Like, for me, it's
yeah.
helpful for me to understand that. I'm not just going crazy. It's actually mirroring in my chart. Maybe a different way than I anticipated, which we talked about in our first episode together about how it's really a tool of surrendering to what is going to occur, but the same theme happens. I just don't know how it's happening, but the same theme happens every single time.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And this is one of the reasons I love Western astrology a little. I mean, I am a Westerner, so maybe it's
Yeah.
appropriate for me, but just the way that it's less focused on the tool of prediction. It can still be used for that very accurately in many ways, but astrology as a tool for prediction kind of for me falls a little flat because like what's the point of that? That's why live life if you're going to know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. That's dumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are we playing this game if
Yeah.
we have something that's going to how it's all going to go?
It's
That
kind of
feels
like
kind of silly.
cheating. It's kind of like cheating on Monopoly, right?
Right. And you hear that people will be like, "Oh, astrology is the cheat code for life if you know how to use it." And there's truth to that.
There's some
But
truth.
the cheat
Yeah.
code isn't in like knowing what's going to happen.
No.
That's an ego desire to like, "Oh, what's it going It's like a measure of control."
Yeah.
Nonsense if you ask me. But
Yeah.
astrology is a tool for it's a yoga for living and breathing and being embodied with the seasons and the cycles
Yeah.
and the aspects of your life and know thyself. Is there any more sacred law or calling in the universe than to know thyself? And I mean, you know my story,
Sure.
if I can talk about myself for a second
Yes,
and
please
how
do.
I I've loved astrology since I was a teenager.
Mhm.
But as a teen, I mean, I am grappling with an understanding of myself as maybe not a full blown like narcissistic personality disorder, but very narcissistic. Like I don't have a diagnosis, but like I'm a narcissist and a covert, vulnerable narcissist. And I used astrology without mentors, without teachers, just self study, self exploration for a lot of years badly. And then when I started to work with teachers and mentors that had a lot of experience and wisdom and knowledge, then started to not be able to deny what I was seeing,
Sure.
and it started showing me my shadows. And that was very difficult for a lot of years. You know, Uranus through the eighth house is no joke, folks. But on the other side of that, it's like, okay, well, now I know myself and I can kind of cut the crap and like own who I am and make necessary changes. And then I can look at my chart and see, okay, well, what can I do with this? If there's all this like darkness and pain and narcissism, how do I turn that around and turn that pain into my own power? How do I heal? What can I do? What positive can I bring out of these shadows now that I'm aware of them and integrate them? And that as a living, breathing calendar for your life has been just the most exquisite tool I've ever encountered. It's really amazing.
Love that. I love that real world example too, as we I'm just going to say it, as we live through this world of like all of this narcissistic movement, right? And hearing how someone was self-aware of being that and how they use this tool to move through that, to have self-awareness and how to move through the correction of that with oneself through these tools is awesome. It's kind of mind blowing actually to me right now. I'm kind of blowing my mind right now, Laura. Like,
Well, thank you. My narcissism loves that.
yeah, yeah, I bet it. Yeah, well, I know how to feed a narcissist. That's been in my chart for years.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I think it's good to say, you know, based off of that information and that in-depthness, let's move the conversation then to compare the stuff you hear on TikTok or Instagram, or Facebook that people like latch onto really tightly, it seems, without having like their own personal reading. Because as we've been discussing already, when you have your own personal reading, you dive deep into your own self with your own emotions for shadow, for possibly understanding your theme in the next year, you know, all these different things. Um, when when we see this stuff on social media, everyone kind of glitches onto it, but that's such an over high level collective like message, is it not? I mean, clearly it's not individual.
Fair. It's a funny thing. And there are several things going on here that I think are important to consider. First of all, this is kind of the modern day evolution with technology of what we've called horoscopes for, centuries.
Right.
And horoscopes
It's
that we
paper.
all know, everybody knows their sun sign is a hangover from the Roman Empire. But the horoscopes that you'll see, like based on your sun sign in the little newspaper,
Uh-huh.
I've always like kind of rolled my eyes at those. There's something to that for just your sun sign, but understand that astrology is very much based in the laws of hermeticism, as above, so below, as without, so within. And I like to explain it to my clients as, that type of art where it's like a tub of water with some oil paint on the
Oh,
surface
yeah.
and you dip a canvas in and it comes out with whatever was there. Yeah, we are like that. The moment we're born, whatever was above, we come in with that imprint, our blueprint, and that's our chart. It's a capturing of everything that was in the solar system at the moment of our birth. So you're more than your sun sign. So those horoscopes don't really hold true if let's say you were just a Taurus sun
Right.
and everything else in your chart is someplace else. You're going to read that horoscope and be like,
Yeah.
nonsense. But there are people who have strong Taurus placements like you, and you might read that little horoscope and go, oh, yeah, that's me. And so it's easy to latch on to that. Well,
Mm.
now we have all kinds of, there's kind of this renaissance of astrology happening in the world, which is so exciting in the age of Aquarius. But with the onslaught of technological advances in all these different platforms and the shortening of the human attention span because of all the onslaught of information, there are people who are trying to get views, get attention, get that soundbite out there. So you'll get these little kind of horoscopic little bits and bites and perspectives from people who, for the most part, I mean, I don't go to TikTok
I
or
don't either.
I mean,
I drop
Instagram
and
because my
go. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really looking for those that like level of astrologer. I don't know any pros that I respect. No offense to anybody out there who's doing astrology on TikTok. You make your art working. You keep growing. We start playing, but there aren't a lot of like really high quality, respectable astrologers who are making little bites because this isn't a soundbite kind of art form or healing tool. This is a yoga. It's a way of being and engaging. It's a deeper, ongoing conversation. You can't get the kind of depth and understanding and healing and awareness that you need as a human being from like, a 10-second TikTok or whatever. So you'll hear little bites about this sign or this placement, whatever. And they could be clever and helpful. I've heard a lot out there that I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of true of that placement. If you're dissecting, let's say Mars in Libra. Mars is in Libra right now. Let's say somebody's making a thing on Mars in Libra. But that Mars in Libra quality that you're describing could be true of the vast majority of Mars in Libra, but it's never, these placements don't live in a vacuum. It's always in the context of the whole chart. So let's say you and I both have Mars in Libra. Yours is squaring Jupiter, let's say. Mine is trining Pluto. Those are very different Mars in Libra potential, different houses and powered by a different sun sign and backed by a different rising sign. It's all very, very contextualized for the unique individual. So while I appreciate that there's a massive spread of astrology and conversation around it out there, there's also a cheapening of it and a stifling of it and a lot of egos, or no, because new to the whole conversation will latch on to something they hear and be like, oh yeah, this about me. And then we only want to take in the positive, or we can manipulate the way that we receive that information if it's not being gifted by a guide who has that human level of connection, intuition, experience,
Yeah.
So it's it's a double-edged sword, this whole TikTok phenomenon with astrology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I agree 100%.
It's very easy for somebody who's new to astrology
Yeah.
to latch on to something that they either, their ego gets excited about something they hear about a placement that they have. And they can latch on to that as being fact or kind of universal. And that's just not true. It's always in the context of the whole chart. And there's always so much more depth than just this like one little line or nugget that you'll hear about a placement in a sign. And it's also very easy to use or to use the information that we see in or that we receive in like a TikTok manipulatively and out of spite or anger or pain and be like, oh yeah, I know that one, Scorpio that has this Mars in Scorpio or something, and be like, see, they're all bad. It's way too easy to
Yeah. Latch on
get
to
this
the
little
fear and
tiny.
anger of it.
You know what it's like? It's kind of like only reading the title of a news article. That's
Right.
what it's like.
And not diving in. Yeah. That's a good
Yeah,
way to put it.
getting your news on social media. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not get of the depth. So I really advise people, if you're interested in astrology, find yourself a really skilled professional astrologer. Find somebody with a lot of experience, or if you find a new astrologer, everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But find somebody who kind of speaks your language and who's willing to go into it with you and connect with you human to human. That is, in my opinion, the only way to really engage. We talked about apps.
We've talked about in the first one, we touched base on AI and how there's these AI apps that allow you to dive in. But again, you can't ask. What I found is, because you know me, I love technology. It's like my other life. And I love AI and I don't like AI. It's a love-hate relationship, right? But I do test all this stuff out, and I have found that I still, it's like, yes, but I'm still like scratching my head because I'm not the professional astrologer, right? And I'm asking questions and I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole, but yet I don't have the feedback loop that you and I have to really understand, am I even asking the right question? Am I even going down the right rabbit hole? Or did I go off into a million different layers and into the weeds and then into the thorns and then into the, I don't know, like Alice in Wonderland over here. Should I eat the little cake or the big cake? I don't know what I'm doing here, So that's what I
Yeah.
found, as a struggle with AI and that. And like you've touched on it before too, where astrology is really personal, and you kind of need that personal one-on-one and that feedback loop, and it's emotional too. I think we both cried before
Yeah.
moving through
Every
these,
session.
moving through these, and you can't get that outside of, AI or trying to do it yourself or thinking you're a novice when you still need like that help?
Did you see the recent phenomenon of Kendra who fell in love with her psychiatrist? Did you
No.
see that whole thing take off? Okay.
Uh-uh.
This was me being quickly online. Maybe if anybody out there knows what just happened with this TikTok series
Uh-huh.
called Kendra, who fell in love with her psychiatrist, it was fascinating and very revealing in a lot of ways. She basically fell in love with her psychiatrist
Uh-huh.
and then kind of went to AI, Chat GPT, to have conversations about it and get some feedback. And Chat GPT, which is very sycophantic and affirmative, fed into what, in my opinion, were a bunch of delusions for her, and she kind of spiraled out with it, and it became this huge issue and problem. Um, I want you to think of astrology as a form of therapy in a way. I mean, it's not, okay? Go get a professional therapist. But astrology is a blueprint. Like, I am not a qualified anything, any kind of clinician. But what I do is dig into me. We kind of get right to the issue with my clients because I can see it written in their chart, or at least
Yeah.
what they're dealing with in the moment. And then I say, okay, now go talk to a professional. But going to the apps that are for astrology, which, by the way, are designed to keep you in fear. So you keep coming back for more information. They are
Yeah.
designed to make money. Or to AI, which is also designed to keep you coming back and to make money. And so it's very affirmative. It's kind of like trying to go, instead of going to therapy, going to an app or AI for that kind of support. And it's just, it doesn't, it doesn't cut it. It will never, ever, even if AI didn't hallucinate or get things very wrong, because even with the most basic astrological questions,
Oh,
the
yeah.
apps, AI in general, are just bad.
Yeah.
They're just sometimes way off or like meaningless. But even if they did progress, let's say 20, 30 years from now, they do really well, they will never have that soulful connective quality. They'll never have the intuition. They'll never have the experience of the wisdom. And they won't be able to have that back and forth because they will always and forever be, well, assuming humanity develops in the direction it's going now, be trying to get money or resources from the individual. And so they will be manipulating to meet their ends of growth, as opposed to an astrologer who is a human, maybe, like I charge for my readings, but I don't have to try for that. People want that human
Yeah.
connection, and there's a human
Yeah.
quality that's lacked, is just missing in the
Well,
apps.
yeah, I had an episode with James Matthew Bailey when we talked about AI and consciousness. And it's true, he's an amazing human who brings forth a lot of technology into this world. And where we both agree, no matter what, is that AI does not have a consciousness. It doesn't have that divine spark. It doesn't have what we have, and nor will it ever have that. It is simply a tool that puts out what you put in, right? And yes, it's incorrect all the time. Even in astrology, I put in stuff, I was like, no, that's not what that doesn't no, that is not correct. My stellium is not in the 10th house of whatever. Like how many times I have to tell you? So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's absolutely correct that this is actually echoed throughout the entire communities of like spiritual mysticism or just people that are like boohoo on apps, is that it's always a fear-based control in order to bring you in, and because it's all about greed. Let's just look at like YouTube astrologers or anybody else, right? If they don't have like 50,000 followers or millions of hits, it's because they're actually saying something that's true and honest and not full of fear, because the fear is what is making the money. And so the algorithm is actually pulling on the fear based of topics, not because they don't want you to know, because everyone's out to make money. So just so you know, astrology is getting the exact same pull and push as anything else out there. And it's important to point out that astrology is very, very helpful. It's so helpful. I don't even know how to explain it. That's why I wanted you back, because astrology has been so helpful in determining and understanding and navigating through this world. It's just like, oh, it just makes everything make sense.
It is quite literally I mean, if I get a little dark on here,
Yeah.
it's like, it is the reason that I continue to live.
Mhm.
There have been a lot of times in my life where I really wanted out bad. I mean, not even in the very distant past,
Yeah.
but astrology puts me into such a state of awe and wonder,
Mhm.
which captivates me and makes me go, well, what about that transit? What about tomorrow? And what can I do with this? And it gives me perpetual engagement and hope. And I want to comment on what you said about astrologers, let's say on like YouTube. There are high quality ones. I
Yes.
mean, my own teacher, I found her through YouTube. My favorite astrologers I found through YouTube, and they have tons of huge following. But there are precious few that are able to get that level of following without that like fear mongering kind of
Yes. Yes.
bomb
Titles,
thing.
right? Yeah,
Totally. Yeah. Oh, y'all have to do the clickbait game. It's so obnoxious.
it is.
But yeah, it's not that there aren't high quality astrologers out there getting massive followings doing what they do, but it takes a really skilled astrologer who's like tuned into themselves, knowing of themselves, and speaking from this soulful center that knows how to tap into something that we are universally experiencing. And that's a high skill
It is a
because
high
the
skill.
astrology is affecting each of our individual charts so uniquely that we're not like this eclipse that's happening this weekend. Not all of us are like in deep suffering, but it's touching on all of us differently. Some people are like, what do you mean? What's going on? And other people are like, what is happening? So to find the through line, the thread that's universal, and to speak that soulfully and obviously not from a place of trying to grip you with fear, that's a rare gift indeed. And yeah, those
I
are fewer
agree.
and far between.
I agree. Yeah. So just be careful out there, everybody. Have to move with discernment and judgment. And it's okay to have some judgment in that aspect of, ooh, I don't know. This
Yeah,
doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right. Am I
yeah,
clickbaiting? Am I catching on because it's a fear title? I don't like doing fear
yeah,
titles. That's why I don't do it.
yeah.
Let's just be honest. I would love to go into the eclipse. You've mentioned it quite a few times, and it is coming up
Okay.
for September. We have two happening, right? The 7th and the 21st. Is that right on those dates?
7th and the 20th, depending on
Okay.
where you are on the planet. 7th and 20th here in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Mhm. What makes this one
Yeah.
so amazing? They're all amazing,
Mhm.
but they all have their own little intricacies, I think.
Yeah. So a few things to know about eclipses. They come in pairs. There's always a set of eclipses. They will happen at least two sets of eclipses each year. They happen about 6 months apart. And some years we have three sets of eclipses. We all remember 2020. That was a three set of eclipses years. And they will happen on a single axis or a single set of signs. In this case, we're under a Virgo South Node, Pisces North Node eclipse once every 9 years, but in the same direction once every 19 years. So, for example, the last time that the North Node, which is the direction we're being pulled or called toward, my teacher Deborah Silverman would call it your shortcut to enlightenment at any given moment. That's the destiny line, that's the direction. The last time it happened there was 2006 and the first half of 2007. And your really woo-woo astrologers will tell you that the eclipses are opening to portals through time. They're wormholes. And it's not just a here and now thing, but you'll hear echoes back to 19 years before, and you'll feel this sort of tingly calling from your 19-year forward future self. And so eclipse portals get a little kind of eerie and time gets a little wibbly wobbly and strange. And you'll often hear pop cultural references back to 19 years before. It happened to me the other day. I
Oh,
heard Live Like You Were Dying
oh,
from, I don't know, some country song. And I was like, whoa, taken back. And I was like, oh my, there it is. It
there
started.
it is.
So, you could stay open during eclipse season and be like, what's the 19 years before? What songs am I hearing? What movie references? Because it happens to me every time. This is the second set of eclipses that we're having on this Virgo South Node, Pisces North Node axis. The third set will be in the spring of 2026. What's so special about this particular set of eclipses is that this is the first set of eclipses that we are experiencing as humanity since all of the outer planets changed signs. We're talking the modern planets, the ones we can't see with the naked eye that are generational markers.
Uh-huh.
Pluto, which is now in Aquarius for the next 20 years. Neptune, which just dipped into Aries, it's going to go back into Pisces pretty soon for a little while. And then February 13th of 2026 is going to go back into Aries for the next 14 years. And Uranus, that just dipped into Gemini. Again, it's going to go back into Taurus for this winter/summer, depending on where you are on the planet. And then as of April 27th of 2026 is going to move on into Gemini for the next 7 years. So, and
I'm
those three
excited about that
planets,
one. Yeah.
yeah, it's been a journey through
Yes.
Taurus. Um, yeah, it's not only special that all three outer planets changed signs within about a year of each other, which is unheard of. That hasn't happened. I mean, each of them can spend up to 3 decades. I mean, anywhere from about 1 decade, Uranus is like 7, 8 years,
Yeah.
to 3 decades in a single sign.
Yeah.
So they all take forever to change, huge generational shifts. But to have all of them change together that close in timing, that hasn't happened in 13,000 years. So this is crazy pants change. Yeah, it's nuts, bonkers, banana
Brokers,
pancakes.
bananas.
What? What's really, really cool is that those three planets are in a special configuration with each other right now called a talent triangle. You might also hear this called a triangle of potential or a minor grand trine. And that's a super, I want to say it's an easeful flow of energy. Now, in astrology, when you start studying the aspects, which is starting to get toward fully integrated advanced astrology, understanding configurations like that, you hear like, oh, a trine, 120 degrees between two planets. That's a beautiful flow of energy. It's a masterful flow. And so you think positive aspect. And a lot of new astrologers will be like, that's good. It's going to be good. That doesn't mean it's flowing good energy. It could be a sewer line. I just made a video on this eclipse, actually. I was just detailing it. It's like, what's flowing through that hose? We don't know. But it's flowing fast. And the sextiles, which are the other two angles that are happening, is a positive flow of energy that needs just a little bit of activity, a little support, and it goes a long way. Whereas the trine is like effortlessly flowing. So I think of these hoses.
Yeah.
I think of a sextile like, oh, you've got the sink faucet and it's fully on, or a trine is like, you got a fire hydrant on full blast with a fire hose. It's really flowing. Yeah. So they are flowing the energy very easily through one another. And this generally means that if you hear it called like a talent triangle, it means there's potential for a talent to evolve if we utilize it well. It's also potential for, you can have some dark intentions behind that talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like all good,
Yeah.
but it is flowing and it's
Yeah.
leading toward a long foretold aspect coming up in the astrology in, I think it's September of 2026, called the Great Basket of Support. And the fact that it's all the outer planets that are making this basket of support, plus Jupiter is going to come along and create this basket that's very supportive. If it were the inner planet, that's one thing. But it's the outer planets, and so it's generational, it's universal, it's affecting society as a whole. And this has been predicted to be a turning point for humanity in a more positive direction.
Yes.
How long it takes to become positive for all of us, who knows? But
We're on
that is
our
a
own
turning point.
timelines. Yes.
Yeah. This set of eclipses, which are like very clear markings of something is ending, we're having to let it go, something is beginning. And this is the first one in our lives with these outer planets and these new signs supporting one another through it. So we're all being whispered to from our potential future selves in a really potent way. We're all getting this like dream of the new self. And how do we become that? And how do we get there? And this eclipse is asking us to do this great big trust fall and tune in to the ethereal, the mystery, the unknown, and trust that this basket of support is going to carry us to build this new self and this new future that is hopefully more positive for all of us.
Yeah. And this is why I come and see you a lot, because with all my work that I do in the mystical space, I usually come to you to do some fact checking. And all of this stuff always supports my work, which is amazing. And that is another reason and another way to use astrology, not just for your personal journey, but also like if you become in tune with the outer world, let's say, and you're like, is this really part of me? Then this is another way to use astrology to just confirm it, right? Or confirm I'm just crazy and I need to go get my head checked. Like, you know, it's one or the
Yeah,
other, really. Yeah.
I've experienced both myself, and I've had to deliver both versions of the news to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're crazy. Oh, okay.
I mean, I have seen my own delusions. I've had to confront my
Yeah.
ego inflation in my chart and be like, no, no, honey, you are imagining things, and it says so right there.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's why I come
just
see you, and that's why I don't use AI because AI to me also inflates the ego. It's meant to do that. It's meant to feed the narcissist in all of us. It's really meant to do that. That's why people should never have a relationship with their AI because it's just feeding you what you want to hear. I mean, it's never going to say, "No, girl, you're wrong." Delusional. It's never going to give that to
yeah,
you. But
totally.
astrology will, right? It will say, "Yeah, you're delusional or you're on the right path. Keep going."
The astrologer will
Yeah, a
help you see
wise
that. But
astrologer. Yes.
no, I really do think you need a solid mentor or a really great professional or many professionals because
Yeah,
I spent a decade and a half running myself into the ground with my own like cherry picking what I wanted to see in the chart
exactly.
before I really was humbled by life and strong teachers who showed me wise ways to utilize it, honestly.
I think it goes back to my three rule. Every time I hear something, I want to go check it three different times from three different ways. And astrology is usually one of those number threes that I use to make sure that I'm hearing something or understanding something correctly before I say it or write it or move to it, because it's like it's your own discernment, it's your own confidence. Astrology is really good for that. I really like too, Laura, how you framed how even in your darkest days, you go to astrology. And I think this is important for anyone with mental health because and I'm just thinking of my own children when I had a son that went through some dark times and he couldn't see the future in front of him. And that's usually what happens when people are in this dark mental space. But astrology, I think, is a good tool. When I heard you say that, I was thinking, well, what a great tool to kind of help you see the future a little bit, to see that it can get better, to see that you might just be in a rut right now because that's what you're supposed to be moving through. But I like how you framed that astrology could help you see forward and see beyond where you are in that
Did I
moment of
lose
your
you?
life as a means to see beyond the trees, right? To see like there is a brighter pasture.
That brings up another really good point of how to utilize astrology with wisdom as a yoga. I think one of the highest uses of astrology as a tool for self awareness is not only to study yourself based on what the chart says, but it's to, as my teacher Deborah would say, to turn your observer on and to become aware of the space between you accessing information and how you react to the information you see. Because I have definitely shot myself in the foot by thinking I knew what the chart said about me, about a relationship, a situation, whether it was for the positive, like what I wanted the future to look like, or the negative, if I was like afraid of an upcoming transit. The real high use of astrology has been for me to find out that I was wrong and then look back at that and go, huh, silly human, maybe I can not get so attached to what I think I know. Maybe I could have some intellectual and spiritual humility and stay open. Maybe I can hold it all lightly. And there I gained some wisdom and maturity in the use of the tool. My friends and I have been talking about this. I recently was demonstrating a very unhealthy use of the astrology in my life, and my friends had to call me on it and be like, hey, maybe this isn't the best use of your time. Do you see how you're winding around this? And I had to be like, oh shit,
You're right.
you know
Yeah.
so observing the self and our tendencies and reactions, and it's a very high form of yoga, I think.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's eye-opening and yeah, and again, it comes back to where we always keep saying it's an active surrender. It's a real surrendering tool.
Yeah. It'll hum you real fast.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Maybe not as potent as a plant medicine who like pushes you into surrender, but something a little less and a little bit more flowing.
Yeah. Interesting how plant medicine has been one of my most important astrology teachers too.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time I go into an experience like that, they're like, "Well, let's go." And we take out into the universe, and there's so many young things to work, and
Yeah.
it's been remarkable in that way. They go really well hand in hand together, as
I
you and
agree.
I have
Yeah.
loved to dig into.
Yeah, it's all of it. I mean, all of it. My chart says stay open,
Mm.
so I'm open.
Yeah. You guys should see her chart. It's crazy. It's one of the craziest charts I've ever seen. 12th house stellium mania.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a positive way.
Right. Yeah. It's fine.
Like 12th house. It's crazy.
Oh, it is crazy, and I'm living the craziness day by day. And
Yeah, you do it. You do it so beautiful. I love witnessing. This is, I guess, another thing that bears saying about astrology.
Mhm.
Your chart, um, lived by somebody who has kind of a, I hate to get hierarchical with it, but like a different stages of consciousness. This is from evolutionary astrology, from the work of Jeffrey Wolf Green, legend. Living in the kind of consensus state where it's like, what's the norm? What does society say? Versus the individuated state, a little more evolved, really knowing the self and tuning into source, versus the spiritualized state, which is, you get into things like Christ consciousness and masters of human life like that. The same chart can be lived out in very different ways by different levels, which feels hierarchical, of consciousness, different states or stages of consciousness. And it's beautiful to witness a chart that is as rich and complex as yours in that 12th house, lived in such a grounded way. Like you're really, you do
Thank
such
you.
a beautiful job with your, yeah.
Thank you. I'll receive that. That's been my shadow work for the last 6 months between these eclipses is receiving.
There you
Who knew it'd
go.
be so hard? But thank you. I'll receive that. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that might be trending now, that you just want to nip in the butt or anything else?
If it makes you afraid, ditch it.
That's a good one. If it makes you afraid, ditch it. Yeah, that is a really good thing to bring up for their own discernment, right? And if it doesn't feel good, and that goes for everything.
Yeah, well, that's a delicate one, isn't it? It's like we can run toward our feelings based on our wounds and our egos that haven't been dealt with or healed or attended to. But if you find that it keeps you locked in a pattern of fear, that's not the right app for you, the AI for you, the astrologer for you, the source for you. If it keeps you locked in fear, you gotta shift something out of that.
Yeah, it's bad energy to be in. I love that. Thank you for those parting words.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always really great to connect with you.
Always such a pleasure, and I look forward to our next reading together.
Yeah.
All of Laura's information and how to book an appointment with her to get your own reading, a phenomenal reading with lots of emotion, will be posted at the end of this episode and within the description. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in to Love of One podcast. To book a personal session with Laura, visit black-light-astrology.com. And if you missed our first conversation, head back to season 1, episode 3 for a deeper dive into astrology as a blueprint of your soul. Until next time, keep remembering.